Hey, Acers. I know there's probably got to be a bet going on among you somewhere that my hair's just going to keep getting so big that it's going to fill the whole screen. But anyway, I am going to take a little bit of a break. I mean, I'll get back into the hazards and still keep spelling it out because I see that I have about 8 to 12 of you that are really solid Acers who come back every week and are here for me to help you understand Savage Worlds better. And I will continue to do that. But today I'm going to kind of shift gears a little tiny bit, and I'm going to talk to you about a new series I'm going to do on this channel. And that series is going to be called What Inspires Me, or What Inspired Me. Actually, I'm going to say What Inspires Me because there's still things that I'm still very much inspired by that have inspired me for many years. Now, I kind of took a minute to scribble down some notes. And so I actually have some ideas for some videos that are going to be coming up, and I'm going to be glad to share those with you. But before I get into the What Inspires Me stuff, I also first want to welcome you to the Ace Role Playing Games channel and welcome to any new Ace Role Playing Games Club members. And once you reach 18, you become an emeritus member, but you are still able to put that anywhere you like, that you were part of the Ace Role Playing Games Club. You can put it on resumes and all sorts of stuff like that. Not that it's going to mean anything, but you can put it there as something, as an activity that you do to get out and associate with your society and your community, because this is ultimately a place for you to belong and know that you don't have to be anybody else other than who you are. That's all we want. We want you and your imagination at our table every week so that you can help make a better world, because we're going to create it together. So I'm actually going to even deviate a little bit from what I stated at the beginning of the video, and I'm going to, where did I put it? There it is. I got to show you, I got a little bit of a haul. So actually, no, I'm not going to show you the haul. I'll do the haul on a separate video. So I'm going to try and keep focused. See, that's one problem that I think a lot of us gamers have, is a lot of us kind of have a little streak of ADHD. And we're like, ooh, shiny. And so we just kind of keep shifting gears and stuff like that. So I'm going to be good, and I'm going to stick to the point. What inspires me? These are going to be a series of videos that I'm going to intersperse with the Savage Worlds videos. So I'll just bounce back and forth every other week. And maybe even throw in some videos during the week, little shorts and stuff. But I want to talk about the things that inspired me and have given me story fuel in my games, or given me event fuel to give to my players in my games so that they can have a story. So that's part of the reason why I got into role-playing gaming in the first place. I did have an uncle who was in the Army, and it seems that a lot of friends and family who have been in the military get into role-playing games and give it a try, because I guess sometimes it feels like there's nothing else to do on board a ship or at a base or whatever, so people start playing role-playing games. And that's really cool. That's really, really cool. And I want to encourage you guys who are teenagers and anybody else who watches this channel that if you feel you got nothing to do, get some friends together and play a game. And that's actually building our community. That's actually making things awesome. So this is going to be kind of not a listing, just me rambling and talking with you like you're my friend, like we're sitting here talking face to face as I talk to you about the things that kind of built this whole, it's almost like a compost heap that goes into our brains. I've used this analogy in my writing and stuff before, but the mental compost heap is what I have called it before. And the idea of a compost heap, of course, is that that's where you put all your leftover food and rinds and eggshells and just all sorts of things like that. You just put it into a heap, and it can be away from the house, and all the bacteria can eat at it and make it stinky and all that kind of stuff. But as it breaks down into a mulch that you can actually take it later. And there's people who have like cool crank ones, and I'm going to eventually get one for my garden and things like that. But anyway, it breaks down into a substance that can feed other things. Like one time, my wife's grandfather, when my wife's mother was a little girl, she watched him throw some peaches out into the compost heap. And the peaches still had their pits in them. And what happened was, over the years that more and more stuff was thrown on that heap, one of those peaches, its seed cracked open and rooted itself down in the dirt, and a tree grew up out of there. And as that tree grew, it grew into a fully mature tree because it was far enough away from the fence and everything. It grew into a fully mature tree that bore fruit, and those peaches were some of the most delicious ones that my wife's mother ever had, and that my wife ever had. My wife had them when she was a little girl, and she remembers those peaches, and she remembers how delicious they were, because they basically grew out of a bunch of just refuse and things thrown into a pile. So that's what I want you guys to realize, is that as you read books, as you watch movies, as you listen to stories, as you tell stories, as you watch and as you read comic books, as you listen to music, all these things will pile into your head. And sometimes, if you're anything like me, sometimes you'll get that song that you just heard, or a song that you heard years ago, and you didn't like it then, and you still don't like it now, but for some reason it happens to play on the store radio, and now it's stuck in your head, and it's going around and around and around and around and around, and it's playing just a little segment from it too. It is an earworm. And sometimes listening to the full song gets rid of it, and that's there. But that's there because I've got all of this in my head. So, let's talk about, for a minute, just kind of some of the upcoming videos. And I'm sure that I'm going to have more than just these upcoming videos of things that inspire me, of things that I like, of things that I think you might be able to be inspired by. That's why I want to make these videos. I want to give you maybe a direction to look for something to read, something to listen to, something to watch that might inspire you and give you that missing key to the game that you're running, or so that even when you're following somebody else's adventure path, or somebody else's, that's the Paizo term for it, or somebody else's plot point campaign as we do it in Savage Worlds, when you're doing that, you can still be a little more agile. And when somebody tries to push into a territory where there might not be story in that plot point campaign, you're already going to have something there because you saw a movie or read a book or read a role-playing game manual or things like that inspired you and gave you a small way to grow a little tree there really quick. So I'm going to talk in this series about, first of all, why I play RPGs. I've kind of given a history on that before, but the thing is that I got into RPGs when I was a kid because I had friends that were playing the Red Box D&D because their older brothers were playing it. And I remember, oh goodness, and I'll tell you this one. My friend Clint Hardy, and I still shout out to you, buddy. Even though I think I might have found you up in Idaho somewhere, I haven't been able to get a hold of you. And if you ever see this video, I hope you know that you still were one of my favorite friends that I ever had in my life. And at that time, I needed you, and you were there. But he had the red box of D&D sitting there, and I think I might have already told you guys that my parents were anti-Dungeons and Dragons because they were certain it was satanic. They were certain it actually had spells in there for summoning demons and things like that. They bought in. They bought in 100% because they thought that our prophet, Spencer W. Kimball, at the time, had come out and prophetically said, no, this is evil, this is satanic, do not play Dungeons and Dragons. And what they didn't understand was that was not from anywhere in Salt Lake City. That was not anywhere anywhere in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. That was from Baptist ministers and other born-again Christian ministers from the South who were preaching against it because it all goes back to the fact that there was a kid in 1979, I think. So I was barely 3 years old, so I wouldn't have been aware of this. But this kid who played Dungeons and Dragons, went cuckoo. And he went into the steam tunnels up at the University of Michigan and disappeared. And his body was never found. So they find all these. He might have been planning as a game master as to where he was going to take his party and things like that. And he had all these strings and loops and Dungeons and Dragons things all over his room. And so they even called Gary Gygax and the people at TSR, the people who made and owned Dungeons and Dragons at that time. And they're like, what does this all mean? And a detective falsely blamed it on Dungeons and Dragons as to why this kid disappeared, who the kid later showed up in Georgia before being brought back. And he, a college kid, but he was brought back, and then later he ended up committing suicide. And that is what I'm hoping to limit as much as I can, is the need, because I didn't realize it until later that I was suicidal when I was in my teenage years. And it was because of role-playing games that I didn't commit suicide. Because I had my friends, those people that I loved, that were waiting for me to show up, that I didn't commit suicide. And so that's why we're here. That's why ACE exists, is because I want to share that community, that love of friendship, of role-playing gaming together with you guys. I want you to feel the love in your hearts for your fellow gamers that I feel for mine. Some of these guys are still my favorite younger brothers. And I will do anything for them. Some of them, I'm glad they've moved on to other places in their lives. And they're not in mine anymore. Because that's just the way family goes. Some family, relatives you're born to. Family you choose. And some of those guys from that gaming group are my family. Some of those guys from that gaming group are the little brothers that I don't like talking about. But it's life. And the thing is that role-playing is how we learn life. Think about the little girls that, whether a boy or a girl, think about the little girls that play house. They play house because they are role-playing being moms and having kids and making dinners. And they're role-playing those things, and they're seeing the emotional attachment to the way their mothers do it. And that is why role-playing is an important thing. We use the role-playing to experiment emotionally with situations we might not even actually ever find ourselves in. And I would hope to never find myself actually in combat with somebody. Oh goodness, I hope I never do. I want the worst to be said about me is that I hurt somebody's feelings once. I don't want to kill anybody. I never want to kill another human being. I'll go hunting. I like meat. But I don't want to hurt another living soul that can be a blessing to my life. Or for that matter, whose life I could be a blessing to. So that's why I got into role-playing gaming. I know that I was pretending to be a soldier and role-playing soldier things and army things because I had an army helmet, and I'd creep through there was a city water pipe that went through our pasture, and it had a leak in it, and our pasture was deep enough in that area that it had watercress that grew wild there. It's kind of like watercress is kind of like a radish, and it grew wild there. And I used to remember slogging through that, kind of knowing what I knew about the jungles of Vietnam and stuff, and pretending to be going through that and stuff. And I role played that as a kid. But what got me into role playing were the Choose Your Own Adventure books. And those started like in 74, 75 or so. And they were great. But my parents, they banned me from bringing home, after I brought home a couple, and they found out about it. They would not let me read the Choose Your Own Adventure books from the Dungeons and Dragons series, which were in the early 80s. And then, on top of that, they, like I said, they banned me from D&D. And so I remember being at Clint Hardy's house and being scared because there was a gust of wind that was, his parents had taped up a plastic bag, a couple of plastic garbage bags. They duct taped them to an opening that was letting air blow into his bedroom. And he told me it was a dragon in there, and that he and his brother were playing D&D, and he leaned into the the demonic side of it and told me how, yep, they had demons and summoned them all the time. And so I went away believing that. I wouldn't touch the red box that he had there. And then my friend Bjorn had the red box. But my friend Bjorn, he also had, and this is where the real inspirations for RPG stuff starts kicking in, he had champions. And because he had champions, when we started hanging out when I was in junior high, and I was still 12 going on 13, that was where we first started going into it. By the time I was 13, I was into it with him. And I've told you about the other role-playing games that got me going, but that's part of the reason that I want to talk, though, about my inspirations. So I was able to appreciate champions because I already liked superhero stories. I already watched Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends on Saturday morning cartoons. I watched adventure stories like G.I. Joe. I tell you, to this day, okay, I have learned that ninjas are pretty much a fabrication, and they're kind of BS. But I will never give up my Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow. I've got up in there in my closet from the more recent, from the second G.I. Joe Retaliation movie, that I hated those movies. Oh, I hated them. And I'll gladly do a video about how much I hated the G.I. Joe movies. But I loved the cartoon when I was a kid. And only then, more recently, did I get to read the actual comics that the cartoons were based on. And the comics came about because of the toys. And I had the toys. I have the toys. I have a box still with 100 figures in it and some vehicles, just the small ones because I couldn't afford the big ones. But I still love G.I. Joe. And I still love my ninjas. Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow are the two coolest characters that were ever in my childhood. I loved reading as a kid. And if you're going to be a game master, read, and then read some more. And maybe even read some more after that. Read all the stories and books you can get your hands on. Build that mental compost heap. So, like, some of the... Okay, and I'm going to talk... Maybe, I think I'll talk a little bit here about Sound of Thunder. When I was 8, my librarian read that to us. In rereading Ray Bradbury's Sound of Thunder, Ray Bradbury's the author, obviously, I am kind of surprised that she read it to us. But at the same time, there were good things and there were bad things and there was life and death. And we didn't try and shield our children from it in the 80s. I was one of those children who was not shielded from it. And Mrs. Parker read us that story about time travel and how the guy goes back in time to hunt a Tyrannosaurus Rex. Because I don't know why, as a culture, but dinosaurs are cool. And they're introduced to us at a very young age. And that's one of the things that one of my kids pointed out to me, is that as you grow up, people stop asking you what your favorite dinosaur is when they meet you. And so I am on a quest, and I invite you all to join me on this quest. And it will be a hashtag in the thing, what's your favorite dinosaur? And I'd love to hear what yours is. So now I got enough of that written down, I'll know to put that hashtag in here. And incidentally, my favorite dinosaur is Stegosaurus, because Stegosaurus has the Thagamizers. And Thagamizers are cool because they were named by cartoonist and one of my heroes, Gary Larson, who wrote The Far Side, which, that's definitely one of my inspiration things in there. It inspired my wry, off-the-wall sense of humor. And Gary Larson, if you ever see this video or ever, if I ever get a chance to talk to you, you have been one of my foundational heroes. And I thoroughly and truly thank you. But yeah, so there's this idea now going back and hunting Tyrannosaurus Rex. The guy goes back, and I'm sorry if I'm spoiling a story that's been out for longer than I've been alive. So it's a dinosaur story, and I'm just showing you the bones. You'll need to go read it to get the emotional experience. But that idea, though, and I got it at 8 years old when she read us this story when I was in second grade. She read us the story, and at the end, the thing that happens, the thing that he inadvertently does that changes all of history, I understood the concept. And Bradbury was playing with the concept. And it is a real scientific concept to understand. And it involves the butterfly effect. And if you don't know what that is, that's a place where you can find inspiration. Research cool things like the butterfly effect. And Wikipedia is a great place to start. But your library will have other things that will give you a chance to just go deeper into things that you might find enjoyable and interesting. So dig into things like this. So the butterfly effect, just to give you the short version, is that if a butterfly does not flap its wing, creating that tiny little impulse of air, it cannot grow into something bigger that affects the next thing, and affects the next thing, and affects the next thing, and causes a certain thing to happen. If you go back in time and stop a butterfly from flapping its wing at the wrong time, you can change history and the way the world has gone. And it's kind of highlighted a little bit in there's a short story you can read on. Oh man, I need to put that on Do Not Disturb while I'm doing this. Anyway, there's a short story that you can read on Tor's website. And that short story is there. No, it won't go again. Anyway, that short story is called Wiki History. And this is a more recent one for me. But it's really funny because it's like a wiki post. It's a usernet kind of thing of people who've discovered time travel. And of course, one guy's like posting, haha, I went back in time and killed Hitler. And then the next post is somebody else saying, I stopped that idiot from killing Hitler because there's a rule that you don't mess with history like that. And then somebody else goes back in time and kills Hitler, and the same guy's stopping him. And you have the other guy calling out, this discussion does, like, one guy's like, I killed Hitler in 1917 when he was in the trenches. I made sure he died. And the guy who's putting time right again, he's like, no, you didn't. And then he finally is like, if we don't get Hitler, we don't get World War II. We don't get World War II. We don't get computers. We don't get computers. We don't get time travel. And shows how causal links like that all kind of line up. And so he ends up basically, but when he posts about 1917, there's a kind of a moderator kind of person going, actually, that belongs over in the World War I time travel thing, not here in World War II, not here in Hitler World War II. And it's just so funny to it's so funny to read this thing. And so I will put down a link to Wiki History in the show notes as well. And I highly recommend. It's a short read, and it's a quick way of understanding a little bit more of, again, what inspires me, what might inspire you. There's a card game I play called, it's by Looney Labs. Time, oh goodness. Time, not Time Breaker. Chrononauts, that's what it is. Chrononauts is what you need to check out as far as games go. Chrononauts is a fun game. It allows you to... you basically have a person who's from an alternate timeline, and you've got to cause these paradoxes to happen in order so you can patch the paradox with what alternatively could have happened. So that way you can get this character home. And I thoroughly love playing that game. Again, it kind of tickles this need for time travel storylines. But at the same time, I don't bring time travel into my role-playing games very often. And that's because there is a lot of stuff that you can do in... There's a lot of stuff you can do in a book or a movie where you have complete narrative control that you can't do in a role-playing game. So I guess I'm going to throw out a short one on that later this week. And I promise I'll show you my haul from yesterday, because I got it last night, so it was too late to record anyway. But I got a Savage Worlds haul that I'll show you. And some of these things, again, fall into the what inspires me category. But I will do that as another video. And I promise I'll do it somewhere between now and next Sunday. But I love you guys. I'm grateful that you came and shared this time with me. And I hope that maybe I've got your mind starting to look for what inspires you. I will be doing a whole bunch of these videos. I got ones on, just to give you a short list, I've talked about Sound of Thunder. I'm going to do a whole video, maybe 2 or more, on Ender's Game and its companion book that I didn't read until it came out, Ender's Shadow. I'm going to do a talk on those. I'm going to talk about those. I'm going to talk about Ray Bradbury again, Orson Scott Card, author of Ender's Game, other authors who inspired me. My uncle, the late Dave Wolverton, David Farland. I miss him, but he was one of my inspirations. William Sleater, his Green Futures of Tycho and House of Stairs are 2 of my all-time favorite books, and I'll go into those. Frank Herbert, of course. Strangely enough, Tom Clancy. More recently, I've been inspired as I've read Paul Anderson and as I've read Alfred Bester and Gordon R. Dixon. Forget about it. That is like one of my new favorite authors, to the point that my Fallout 4 character, which I'm going to post some Fallout 4 videos after I finish playing my playthrough, but I'm going to try and figure out a way that I can post them on a different string or something, on a different playlist, where you guys won't get them as quickly and easily as you could do these ones, because the game itself has foul language in it. And again, this channel is designed so your parents won't ban us. So some of the movies that inspired me, the Star Wars movies, I'm going to do several videos on those, what I liked, what I didn't like. I will admit, I can't even bring myself to watch half the new stuff that Disney Plus is putting out. And yes, I called them out. I'm calling them out right now. Most of the stuff they put out is schlock. But that's because I saw good storytelling in the original trilogy. And that good storytelling, I look back now and I realize it started going downhill at a certain point. And that the prequels were only mediocre at best. And then the sequels, I couldn't even finish watching them because they were horrible. And then these Disney Plus shows are awful too. And I'll throw it out there and let you hate on me as much as you want. But that's going to be coming. But Star Trek is on there. I like Star Trek. So I like both. I didn't choose a religion. Anyway, the movies and the TV, the Terminator series, Dune, The Last Dragon. That's what I'm going to do a whole episode on. And these are just some of the movies and stuff. The comics like X-Men, TV shows like G.I. Joe and He-Man, and the cool ones like Renegade and Stingray, and there are some cool grown-up ones that I liked watching with my dad. A lot of the stuff that I watched with my dad inspired me. the music, the darker music that I like to listen to, like Oingo Boingo, and um, but like all music from 50s to now. These are all things that have inspired me, that have helped me become the game master that I am today. And I'll admit, I'm not the best game master, but I'm trying to do what Basho, the Japanese haiku guy, that I mean, I can't write a haiku really to save my life off the top of my head. It would take me really practicing to do it. And that and writing them in English is kind of. But anyway, Basho did say that great masters do not become masters by studying what the current masters are doing and by studying what's now going on. They study what the great masters studied. And so by looking at all these things, I'm hoping to give you some inspirations for some of the great masters that inspired me, and maybe help you find your own masters of today who can inspire you and help you move forward to becoming a great game master. So again, I love you. Thank you. And the world is a better place because you're in it. And I look forward to seeing you at my table.